Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Well, it's going to be a hot one and already in effect. You have inland areas for our county already under the heat advisory across the inland valleys, and maybe you're noticing a little bit of a different shade that's taking place right there across the mountains. So initially it was supposed to be heat advisory, but now it looks like forecast highs are going to be hotter than what was initially projected. So now it's been upgraded to an extreme heat warning across the mountains, and that will also extend into the desert. So the desert back into those teens between 113 to 119 for daytime highs. Now looking at the mountains in the mid 90s all the way up to 102, below 6,500 feet right along the foothills too. And then you have the inland valleys mid 90s to 105. Another area has also been added to the list, and that will go into effect with a heat advisory for the coast and metro cities. That will start at 10 a.m. for tomorrow morning, and that's going to last all the way until 8 p.m. with the rest of the alerts across the county. Mid 80s in some spots right there for the coast, and even potentially seeing some of those low 90s for cities like Vista. Also talking about that for potentially seeing that for National City, for Chula Vista, for Miramar, as temperatures will be warming up over the next few days. When we look at our highs for today, we had 85 degrees. That was for La Mesa as well as for Chula Vista. You also had those 90s, and that was for Escondido as well as for Valley Center. You had 70s right there along the coastline for North County, and you had 78 degrees for downtown, 80s widespread across the mountains, but temperatures are going to be climbing even more. Let's also talk about overnight lows, because those are going to be warmer than usual by roughly about 5 to 15 degrees in some spots, and that is going to be reflected in how uncomfortable it will feel once we get away from the daytime highs. So those are looking to be warmer than usual as well, and that coupled with humidity, especially right there along the coast, will make things uncomfortable. And so that's what we're looking at over the next few days, even under that heat advisory. So not just a reflection when it does come to our daytime highs, but also the overnight lows. These are the temperatures that we have right before our sunset, which is going to be roughly around 5:56 in the morning. So very warm as we go into tonight, and we are looking at temperatures that will be into the upper 80s, low 90s across the desert. You have 70s for Julian as well as for Palomar Mountain. Also those low 70s Encinitas as well as for Oceanside. So that is going to contribute to things feeling more uncomfortable, especially when you talk about an increase in humidity, and that's going to be more of a reflection closer towards the coast and impacting for metro cities as well. So please keep in mind that increases heat-related illnesses, and so we want to keep you nice and safe, let you know to just basically utilize those cool zones, drinking plenty of water. Also it's suggested to eat cold foods or anything that has like a fruit that has water in it. Always good to consume when we do have these alerts. Anything that you can do, limiting the outdoor activities, especially during midday hours, a key time frame about 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. because that's when we start to get the heating of the day really going, as well as the most intense sun rays. And so that's going to be coupled with the hot highs that will be returning across our county for tomorrow. Widespread 90s that you're seeing, 93 degrees expected tomorrow. That's going to be for Escondido, 97 degrees for Ramona, a lot of deep red. That's taking place across the inland valleys, extending into the mountains. We have 97 degrees for Julian, 115 for Borrego Springs, and those 80s will take over right there along the coast, as well as for downtown, and 84 degrees. That will be for Chula Vista. Lots of 80s to go around if you're going to be heading out to Comic-Con, so just make sure that you're also staying nice and hydrated, maybe avoiding some of the longer and midday hours, those activities outside, or if you are going to be out there, just making sure that you are protecting yourself, keeping yourself nice and hydrated, taking breaks in the shade to try and beat the heat, because yes, costumes in 80s, not the best combination, but if you can get into the convention center, not a bad idea, not a bad place to be, as we will have those 80s around all the way through the weekend and not looking at much of a break. And as I mentioned, even overnight lows are going to be warmer than usual, upper 60s to low 70s, coupled with an increase in humidity. Area of high pressure will be our main weather maker. That is Alita, what was Alita, and now it's just moving towards the north. That's an area of low pressure, no longer a tropical system. It's post-tropical. But a ridge of high pressure is going to help push that a little bit more towards the north. That ridge of high pressure stays around our forecast, and that's why we're going to be holding on to the heat all the way into the start of next week. But it's not just the heat, it's also the elevated surf. And so indirect impacts are going to be anticipated with Fausto, that is a hurricane that is churning in the eastern Pacific. Very similar to Alita, where we had the elevated surf from a south swell. We're looking at that increasing again starting on Thursday with the beach hazard statement and lasting all the way through 8 p.m. on Sunday. That brings elevated surf to about 5 to 7 feet, also increasing our risk of rip currents, especially for inexperienced beachgoers. This is not the time to be in the water. Another thing to keep in mind, over the weekend, you have a minor coastal flooding that will also be possible, and that's because we have an extra pull that's going to take place on our evening high tides. And so we saw this previously with the new moon phase, but now we're going into the full moon phase, and that full moon will be out there, the full buck moon, and that will be on July 29th. But in the days leading up to that, especially in the evening hours, that creates that extra pull when it comes to our evening high tides, and they'll be upwards of about 5.5 to 6.5 feet over the weekend between the time frame of about 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So that could lead to the tidal overflow into parking lots, similar to what we saw just a few weeks ago. And that was because we had that extra pull from the new moon phase. So that combination being there. And as I mentioned, that's an indirect impact from Fausto. Fausto is still a hurricane moving through the eastern Pacific. It is a Category 1 hurricane with maximum sustained wind speeds about 80 miles per hour, moving towards the west at about 12 miles per hour. It looks to maintain that strength as a Category 1 hurricane as we go into the weekend, and then becoming a tropical storm as we go into about Sunday evening. Another thing to keep a close eye on, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing, is Hawaii. Any impacts that would impact the islands because of this storm system moving into the central Pacific. So we will keep you posted in the days ahead as far as any impacts for Hawaii. But for us, as I mentioned, the indirect impacts being there because of the south swell that's being generated from Fausto. When we look at our extended forecast, so if you were thinking about beating the heat right along the coast, not the best idea if you're not a skilled swimmer or surfer. Now you have those 80s for daytime highs for the coast that continue to hold strong. Then we get into Tuesday of next week, a minor dip in degrees, 78 degrees, but then you notice on Wednesday, increase in temperatures again. 80 degrees will be the high on Wednesday. You also have the 90s across the inland valleys. Then we get to the upper 80s by Tuesday, back into the low 90s by next week. So we're going to have widespread 90s back in the forecast, and maybe even seeing some additional heat alerts being issued by next week with another expanding area of high pressure. You have the 90s for the mountains. Those will continue to go strong over the next few days all the way into the start of next week. The 1-teens for the desert all the way through Saturday, a little bit more of a slip in temperatures on Sunday and Monday, but still very hot out there. And then we have temperatures increasing again by Wednesday of next week. So if any additional alerts are issued by the National Weather Service, of course, we will keep you posted right here. I hope you're having a great night. Please stay safe out there in that heat, and I'll see you tomorrow.